Okay, so good to see all of you. And today we're doing Vashti. I'm just going to share the screen. And if we have some time, at the end, maybe we'll look at one of the Yehudim Ba'im things, and maybe even a little bit at Esther. But I'm not so sure that we'll have time. We'll come back to this picture afterwards. Fiona Benjamin really is one of my favorites. And this is part of her series. We'll come back to it. We've seen a lot of her art. But I thought I would start off with something humorous since, we're going into Purim. So here is Gustav Doré's picture. Supposedly this is Vashti. Wait a minute, why is it so? And on the right, 1 minute, all of you down here. On the right is putting this in color, okay? And then if you want to see what this is the Queen Vashti beach towel by Gustav for $40.
What?
So,
Cool.
So it's very cool. So you could look for it. I don't know when I downloaded it. And here's Laurie Bloom Vashti, which is the seeing her as the Venus de Milo, and here she's empty, right? If you look through, there's nothing. She's empty. She's passive. All right. She's bruised. Her breast is bruised, and she's clearly punished. Clearly, she's headless, armless, and she, even though she's blue, there's some red flesh coming out of it. Actually, it's very interesting if you put it side by side with the blue here, the blue Vashti. But okay, what I did years ago, I put this into English now, but years ago when Corona began, I put together a little Haggadah for reading, the chapters online. So I had the whole Haggadah, and I decided to illustrate it because, Haggadot, not Haggadot,
Megillot.
By the way, the reason I'm saying Haggadot, because actually the word Hagid, Magid, appears a lot in the first two chapters with Esther. So it's very interesting. And maybe it's because the dates in there are very close. This is based on some very important article that Mike wrote many, many years ago, and it's very close to Pesach when all of this is taking place. So the fact that there's, and there actually is a Midrash which relates to the fact that she says that she's read, that Esther is read, not with a R-E-A-D, that she's read. So it's very interesting. So anyway, I put this together for the Megillah when I read, so that would be interesting for people not just to hear a boring Megillah, because chapter 1 is very boring. So here's Achashverosh, and he's sitting, getting drunk, right? And people are encouraged to drink as much as they can, and no one really knows who Achashverosh was, but they think perhaps he was Xerxes. I don't know how you pronounce it. Xerxes, Xerxes, I don't know how you pronounce it. Okay, thank you. King of Persia, who lived in the 5th century. Okay. And then Queen Vashti was also rumored, a lot of this is based on the Midrash. Queen Vashti is rumored to be the last descendant of King Nebuchadnezzar. And here you see her preparing a parallel feast for the women in the royal house. So look at the two different concepts. I put this in deliberately. Here you have a king getting drunk with all of these different rulers, right? And here is poor Vashti, who look at how straight-laced they all look. They're sitting up straight and uncomfortable, and they don't look quite as happy. And so while they're carousing, the women are supposedly enjoying themselves, but they don't look too happy, do they? Here's another vision of Vashti, a very pretty vision of Vashti here, where she's standing up and she's somebody, and a lot of women seem to be following her, although somebody here seems to have a cross. No, I guess that's a cane. But okay. Anyway, so the king asked her to come. I'm assuming all of you know the story. And the king, tells his servants, his chamberlains, to bring his property, right, Vashti, before him, and tells her to wear the royal turban, which will show off her beauty to the people. Of course, according to the Midrash, all she's wearing is a turban and nothing else, and that's why she says no. But okay, whatever. Anyway, she refuses to obey, and he is very upset about all of that. And so here you have another picture here where the beautiful queen over here refuses to obey the commandment, all right? And I guess he has to go back and tell her that, So this, a lot of feminists, of course, have, there's a wonderful film, which we have time at the end, I have here on tape, where she said no, no, no to the king. And the idea of, the Me Too movement and being able to say no, and it's very, Vashti's story really has been picked up over the years by feminists going back to the 70s. So you have here the whole idea of Vashti. He doesn't bother to even ask her why is she saying no. Right away he goes to his wise men and says, what shall be done according to law to Queen Vashti for failing to obey the command of King Achashverosh? And then Memuchan answers for him. And this is what's fascinating, because this is a setup for the rest of the Bible. So I want you to pay very, very close attention to this. Queen Vashti has committed an offense, not only against your majesty, but also against all the officials and against all the peoples in all the provinces of King Achashverosh, for the queen's behavior will make all wives despise their husbands, as they reflect the King Achashverosh himself ordered Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. So this is the idea that she's going to end up possibly causing a rebellion is very, very dangerous, all right? And so what's really fascinating is, was she in the end killed? Because she suddenly disappears by the time we get to chapter 2. Was she killed? Was she exiled? We don't really know. And in Ginsburg's Legends of the Jews, which probably inspired Marc Chagall's painting, which is called The Banishment of Vashti, right? What do you see here? What do you see here?
A baby. A baby.
Right. So Ginsburg's retelling of in the Legends of the Jews, right? There's a note that Vashti had given birth a week before being summoned by Achashverosh. So in Chagall's painting, The Banishment of Vashti, she's exiled by Achashverosh, who stands up here imperiously, right, before his throne. And the question is Vashti holding a nursing infant? And if she is, it means the line of Vashti will not be wiped out. The question is, who's the husband? We don't really know. Okay, that's not neither here nor there. Okay, and so the continuation of this particular passage with a little dot there. If it pleases your majesty, let a royal edict be issued by you, and let it be written into the laws of Persia and Media that Vashti shall never enter the presence of King Achashverosh. So again, we don't know what that means. And let your majesty bestow her royal estate upon another who is more worthy than she. Then will the judgment executed by your majesty resound throughout your will, and all wives will treat their husbands with respect, high and low alike. Okay, I should have changed this picture to put some other people in here. Again, since I'm taping, I'm not going to mention who, but you could use your imagination. Okay.
Imagination.
Okay, so what you have here is a very interesting setting up for the future. Because if you think about it, when you have Esther coming in, and Esther starts out in the early chapters, she starts out being extremely passive, right? She follows orders. She's taken into the palace. Mordecai commands her what to do, and she basically follows orders. They're putting all sorts of ingredients on her, right, to make her beautiful and whatever. She sort of is like a trafficked woman brought into the house, right? We're not talking about Esther today, but I just want to use this. And then there's a switch. I actually, when I teach Esther, I usually call her Esther Aleph and Esther Bet. And all of a sudden there's a switch, and all of a sudden Mordecai says to her, if you don't, act now, then, it will all be lost. And maybe you've come here specifically for this time. And then she has in Hebrew, you say, Nafal laha simon. She has a click moment, right? And she then wakes up and she becomes assertive, and then she starts giving orders, and she tells Mordecai what to do. And she says, okay, I'm willing to take a chance. We're going to fast. And if I am lost, I'm lost, right? In other words, she's willing to put her life on stake. So you have two different, now here, why am I mentioning this? Because here they're trying to control women, but women cannot be controlled, right? The whole story of Esther shows that she can, take over and end up even ruling, and even making, if you aren't falling asleep by the end of the Megillah, even making some decisions which are pretty awful, right? So in terms of wiping out the enemy. Okay, so the Midrash that I brought in actually is what I wrote many, many years ago in a collection which we've seen many times by Penina Edelman. It's called Praise Her Works. And this is chapter 22a. Chapter 22, I'm not sure which one comes first. I can actually look at it. But there's also one about Esther, which is written by Tamara Cohen, which I'll actually have something by her at the very end. So the verse that is chosen for half of a verse, right? Remember, Praise Her Works is all about the Midrash, which takes the Eshet Chayil is a acrostic. So and they take every single verse to be a specific woman. So at the very end, you have, of course, at the very end, you have Sheker, which is a shin, right? Sheker Achen, the Hevel Hayofi, and that's Vashti, Zo Vashti. Grace is deceptive, beauty is illusory, and this line from Eshet Chayil refers to Vashti. And the continuation of this, I'll come to that in a minute, but we'll, in 1 second, we'll come to that, okay? All right, so this is all what I wrote. This is the commentary. That's the standard that she has here. She has commentary and then a midrash. And so, so you have here the beautiful heroine, which is Vashti, the first half of the pair that makes up the 22nd Eshet Chayil is someone to emulate. She's brave, defiant, strong, self-determined. She's proud, she's upending, she refuses to obey, right? Her husband who sees her as his possession. And one wonders if rabbinic tradition would have been supportive of Vashti for her stance of independence and personal dignity, right? They're always talking about tzniut. What's tzniut? Modesty, right? She wants to stay with the women. She doesn't want to go out and flaunt her beauty. But instead, the rabbis chose her grace and beauty as swords against her, all right? And they say that grace is deceptive, beauty is illusory, refers to Vashti. It's for her fear of the Lord that a woman is to be praised. That's the continuation, right? That's the continuation of the phrase. It's that a woman is to be praised. This is Esther. In other words, who is Esther? She is someone who fears the Lord, and she's to be praised. Vashti should not be praised at all. Grace is deceptive. beauty is illusory. You can't trust it, all right? So this is very interesting. So Vashti is identified with sheker, deception, lies. And the letter shin, the first letter of sheker, think about the shin, has 3 prongs, okay? It could be the devil's pitchfork. It could brush her beautiful hair, a comb, which emphasizes her vanity. It could be teeth, right? It could be, Vashti could be someone with a bite, a strong voice of her own who has to be put down. Or it could symbolize the crown. Here's a crown. It's also a shin, the crown of her royalty. But I must add that in our house, when we used to sing Eshet Chayil, we came to Yirat Adonai, the fear of God, right? We, instead of saying Isha Yirat Adonai, a woman who fears God, we changed it to Isha Maskelet, right? Following Professor Alexander Rofei, a Bible scholar, who referred back to another verse in Mishlei in 19, verse 4. Property and riches are bequeathed by fathers, but an efficient wife, Isha Maskelet, comes from the Lord. Okay, and we felt in our family that we should follow Rofei's, because I felt if they're praising me, I would prefer to be known as Isha Maskelet, which is not only efficient, but also the word seichel comes from there, right? With a little bit of brains. I prefer that than being God-fearing. And I was telling this to someone else the other day. They said, but you're God-fearing, aren't you? I said, well, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. But I always would like to be thought of as Isha Maskelet. So this is Alexander Rofei, who used the year that he spent at Ben Gurion University. We got to know him very well. And so this is, and by the way, to be a little bit gory, I had a conversation the other day with my daughter, and I was telling her what I want to be on my grave. So I said, this is one of the verses I want to be on my grave. So it's a very hot topic, and the kids thought I was out of my mind to be talking about this right now, but now's the time to be talking, not when I'm no longer here. So, okay, so here is Richard McBee, who we've seen a lot. This is his view of Vashti, also based on the Midrash. All of these paintings are based on the Midrash. What do you see here?
Wow.
A tail.
A tail.
Tail, yeah. And that's in the Midrash, okay? Here's a coloring book, right? And here she has a tail, and here she has spots. This is a coloring book. I think it's put out by Chabad, I'm not sure who. Here's another, very interesting, right? This is in the Alba Bible, right? And this is really fascinating. Vashti's fall in the Book of Alba, okay? I'm just right now, let me just point to you certain things. There's the angel, there's a tail, there's a crown on her head, and somebody, when we talked about this, I've taught this before, and there's bleeding here. So now let's make it bigger. You can see it. And she's having her, right? She's having her banquet. And here she's on the floor with a tail. Here's the angel Gabriel, who's over her. Here is blood coming out of her. What else did I say was there? And then here, this is what's fascinating. Okay, you see this?
Yeah.
So I was sure that this was a crown, but somebody suggested perhaps it was horns. I don't really see them as horns, but
No,
maybe.
look, it's definitely a crown.
I think it's a crown because this is her arm. This is her arm. So the crown is falling off her head. So this is really fascinating, and it's based on the Midrash. So this is fascinating. And here's this is the Alma Bible, and this is also this is very, very similar, but this has nothing to do with Vashti. This is Baal Zathar's feast in the Alba Bible. So it's interesting that this came this is very, very similar to what we just saw now. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I did have it enlarged. I had it enlarged. I just skipped too fast. But okay. So here's a close-up of naked Vashti with the tail and angel Gabriel. Okay. So the question is, and it's a very important question, is why did our sages find it necessary to demonize Vashti, who behaved modestly, right? Why did they need to turn her into an other with whom no one would want to identify? So one possible answer is in the Agadah, Vashti was a great-granddaughter of King Nebuchadnezzar, right? And she witnessed the Persian conquest of Babylon, ruled by her father, King Belshazzar, right? This was King Belshazzar's feast, okay? So according to the Midrash, right? According to the Midrash, when the city fell, Vashti found out her father had been killed. And Darius, the succeeding king, took pity on the young Vashti and gave her hand in marriage to his son Ahasuerus. And Vashti felt that she had married beneath herself. So when Ahasuerus made his famous request of her, Vashti insulted him by reminding him of his lowly status as a servant to her father by exclaiming, "You used to be the stable boy of my father's house, and you used to bring naked harlots before you. Now that you've ascended the throne, you still have not changed." I'm going to put the word in, "your filthy habits." It doesn't say that, but okay, I'm putting it. Okay, so this is from the Midrash on the verse, but Vashti refused. So it seems that the rabbis are getting back at this last descendant of Nebuchadnezzar, just as Ahasuerus doesn't give Vashti a chance to speak or explain. The rabbinic tradition only allows us to see the nether, literally the nether side of Vashti. Okay, all of this was in my introduction without the pictures. The pictures do not appear in the book, but I decided to illustrate them. Okay, so now we have Vashti speaks. Let me see, how many readers do we need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 readers. Okay, so Joyce,
Okay,
Norman,
sure.
Toby, Debbie, and Barbara. Okay.
Okay. Vashti speaks. What hurts me most is that on Purim, there are hardly any little girls who dress up as me. True, there are now some women who wave flags in their synagogues with bells on them so that my voice is heard as a tinkle, but that is considered a subversive act, not the norm. Why this conspiracy of the rabbis to shut my voice down? Didn't they know that I was a secret Jew? That when I didn't appear before Ahasuerus, it was because I believed in the one God and knew that my husband was not my God. I had learned the lessons of modesty from Daniel when he was in our prison. I went to mock and curse him and came out a convert. Didn't they understand that without me, there would have been no Esther in the palace and the Jewish people would have been doomed? They should have thanked me. Instead, they mocked me and turned me into a monster. And where am I today? Locked out of the palace, under guard. Everyone thinks I'm dead, but I'm not. I look in my mirror every day and see another wrinkle, not laugh lines, nothing to laugh about yet. All around me are eunuchs, no men to admire me. I have needs, you know. I keep abreast of what's going on in the palace and approve of all that Esther does. I send her letters. It's our secret, giving her advice on how to please my ex-husband, who was a bit of a fool, who I thought I had under my control, until Haman got hold of him and put ideas in his head.
Who is going to have the last laugh, I wonder? Will it be Esther and me or the men? At first, I was very jealous of the thought of his having another wife in my stead, but then I realized how lucky I was to be relieved of him. I never wanted children from him. His rank was too lowly. I come from royal stock, and he was only a soldier's son. But when my father died, I had no choice. He was my only source of protection. I trusted him for a long time and followed his lead until he went one step too far and commanded me to appear before him after his extended drinking bout. He thought I was his prized possession, like our pet leopard Mooney. How dare he summon me and try to degrade me? All the princesses in the world heard about what he wanted. They all knew. They had their eyes on me, wondering how I was to respond. I had responsibility to them, not only to myself. If I gave in to the king's demand, there would be total disrespect for women of the Persian kingdom. So I simply refused. I was a queen from royal lineage with a position to uphold. There was no way I would allow myself to be subjected to such an indignity.
I must admit that I miss the life that I used to have. There are limits to the contemplative life of peace and quiet. I miss the intrigue of court and am too dependent on Esther's correspondence with me, but it is all I have, so I make peace with it. At least I am not dead. That is what I want you all to know, not what the rabbis would like to have you think. They spread rumors that Achashverosh had me killed after I refused to come before him. They said I deserved my fate because I would not allow Achashverosh to give permission for the building of the temple, and that I used to say to him, "Do you seek to build what my ancestors destroyed?" What nonsense! If you read the Bible carefully, it says that I shall never enter the presence of King Achashverosh again. So all it keeps moving. So all I lost was the dubious privilege of entering the king's presence, and we all know what that means, and the title of queen. And there are some who still consider me to be the lawful queen. I do have my following, you know. It consists mostly of women who don't want to be ruled by their husbands. Now that was an idiotic law, wasn't it? What a farce to use all of the Persian law and administration and its primitive postal service to make every man be a master in his own house. What were they thinking of, those idiots? That every woman was waiting for me to give a signal to rebel against their husbands? Actually, that's not such a bad idea when I look back. Too bad I didn't think of it then.
Okay, so this is the end of that, and this continues, okay?
Second, grace is deceptive, beauty is illusory. When you get up in the morning, don't look at the mirror right away to see if you look gaunt and thinner than yesterday. Don't get on the scales to see how much weight you've lost at night. Take a lesson from me. What is Hevel? It is usually understood as vanity or lack of meaning, but it is really the mere breath that separates us from the living and the non-living. Beauty is fleeting and fragile. You may think that beauty gives you advantages over other women and some power, but in the long run, it is transient. And when you lose it, if it is all you have going for you, you will feel that only transient beauty separates you from being an object of love and desire to being unloved and undesirable. What has given me happiness over the years is my discovery of the one God. I had many discussions with Daniel when he was locked up in our jails, and from him I learned what is real and what is not. Although I tried to seduce him at first, he wasn't interested. He said that beauty is vanity and that I should look within myself to see who I really was and what I really wanted from life.
I don't know who's the next reader. Okay, Susan, would you read Susan's Ferris?
Sure. Sure.
There are two types of beauty. One is external, the other internal. All my life, I was known for my external beauty. Rabbi Berechia went so far as to describe me as a raven that decks itself with its own feathers and with those of others. He had a point. I did take advantage of my external beauty, but it is vanity, since you cannot take it with you. If you find some external value and seek it out and nurture it, then your beauty will be passed down to generations. Do not allow the allure of jewelry, fashion, makeovers, or perfect hair to influence you to develop only your external beauty. Delve into yourself and find out who you are. And then, next Purim, dressed up as me, Queen Vashti. I had a following. I lost it, and then was demonized for my ideas.
Okay, so so this is the standard following that I don't usually do that when, but I thought that it'd be interesting to do this. And then at the very end, there's for further thought, and I really want to bring your. I have some questions here. I think this is meant to be a great gift for bat mitzvah kids, you know, teenagers. And so there are questions also at the end of each section. So what does it mean to refuse to come at someone else's bidding? What qualities does a woman need to have in order to follow her own convictions? All right. Compare her with Lilith. You know, so, okay. What I would like to just bring to your attention is, I don't know how many of you have this in your library. This goes back to 1976, right? And this was the very first book to come out with a collection of articles with a feminist perspective. Most of the articles had been previously written. They were not necessarily written for this book. And this was the only available collection of women's writings till about 10 years later, when Susanna Heschel came out with her book, which was called, here, one second. She came out with her book, which was called Being, oh wait, you probably don't see it because you're looking at the PowerPoint. So wait, let me just stop to share. All right. When Susanna Heschel's book came out on being a Jewish feminist. And for a long time, these were the only materials available to anyone who was interested in the topic, right? And I always think it's very important for us to go back to the good old days. I mean, I'm one of those people from the good old days, and to have some sense of awe that all of this was started in the very beginning. You know, it goes back earlier than the 70s, but that's when, you know, Jewish feminism was impacted by regular feminism, which had started a little bit earlier, but very soon. I mean, and by the way, a lot of Jewish women were involved in secular feminism. In other words, it's not as if they were, and to this very day, you know, people like Gloria Steinem, but to them, their Jewishness was not very important. In other words, some of them, yes, but most of them not. So anyway, so let me just go back to sharing. 1 minute. So, so this book edited book by Elizabeth Colton had a whole bunch of midrashim about Vashti in Mary Gendler's article called The Restoration of Vashti. And for many, many years, I used to use this. You know, I went and found the sources in Hebrew, but for many years, this was my major source, and still it stands, and it's a wonderful. It's wonderful. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So let's just go back to 1 or 2 pieces of art, and then we'll look at something else that's interesting as well. So this is Fiona Benjamin's Vashti. Right? She's a tragic figure. She's looking from outside, right? Inside. She's no longer inside. She's outside. All right. But what does she see here? What does she see here? What is she looking at? Oops. What is she looking at? By the way, it's very painful today to look at this, by the way, because in terms of what happened, right? In terms of the destruction that we
It looks like blood on the floor, like a shadow.
Right, right.
Is that her lying on the floor? She's singing?
No, it's blood on the floor and a chair overturned. It's a checkerboard. Is that like, or a chessboard? Is that like a symbol for life? It's possibly a sanctuary of sorts. It looks like some sort of a temple, right? Look at the windows. This list could be the Ner Tamid, the eternal light, right? So you have here the whole idea of her looking into a house that's very small. She has wings, right? She's a winged person. She's crouching, right? And it says here depicted in black and white, right? Like the sanctuary, like an old postcard. So, and she's an outsider and she's looking in here, right? And this is what she sees. It's a beautiful rendition by done in 2007 by Siona Benjamin. You could look for her art online. She also has some discussions where she discusses things as well. The next thing I want to show you is a very interesting depiction of Vashti and Achashverosh. Vashti is on the right. This is the right. Yeah. And Achashverosh is on the left. And so what you have here is an ego with caps, right? And an ego with lowercase letters, all right? So his ego is very big, all right? All right? And so this is man and this is woman, all right? Both of them are fighting for control, right? Notice, by the way, his ego is also very phallic, if you noticed. Whereas her ego is a little bit different, okay, which I'm sure is not a mistake. I did not draw this, by the way. So what you have here is dominance, power, maintain the status quo, right? Imposition of will, punishment, this is male. And here's women, independence, lack of power, challenges the status quo, resistance. So here you have, in a nutshell, the difference between both of them, all right? And notice there's lots of capital letters here, right? Lots of uppercase letters here. Whereas here, like for instance, status quo is in caps, and whereas status quo here is in lowercase. So I think it's very interesting to see that, all right? She says, only the arm that faces the king is in capitals when you have the ego here. So that here is the only place when she has some sort of control, all right? Otherwise, we don't know too much about her. But the fact that there's, back and forth between the two, and there seems to be a fight, some sort of a contest, and it's in public, all right? And so that really is, somewhat problematic. So this is the social structure, right? This is the social structure. And these little figures standing on the head of the king are dependent on him, and they support him. Notice here, there's no one here. She stands alone, right? Despite her high position, she has no independent power. This is, we're talking about Vashti, right? We're not talking about later what happens with Esther, right? There may be women who support her, but we don't know about it, okay? So this is a very, very interesting representation, and it leads very nicely into a poem that I wrote many years ago. So Sue, would you like to read it?
Sure. Vashti derobed. Straight and proud she stands, not for her the selections. She has refused, she has objected. She will not subject herself, submit to gazing, drunken eyes boring into her. The path she has chosen is different. Not for her the party clothes, the giggling, the dressing up for others. She is other, anomaly, threat to claims of supremacy. Vashti bends down, not for her supplications. She bares her head for the first and last time. The party is over for her.
Okay, so here I have actually a somewhat gruesome understanding of what happens to her. Oh, I thought I had that picture here. I guess I don't. Well, what happened to it? Huh. Okay, I'll find it in another place. Anyway, here I have the impression that she's what? What's the impression that we have here?
That she's going to be executed.
Right, right. So she bears her head for the first and last time. It's sort of like a guillotine or something like that. So I wrote this. It's a very funny story. I have a feeling I wrote this. I mean, not funny, haha, but I think I wrote this in the 70s. I was on a bus to Tel Aviv. I was totally immersed in all of the Midrashim in Hebrew. All this was in Hebrew. All of the Midrashim about Vashti. And I was totally in my mind. I was very nervous. And I was going on a bus. In those days, there was no train to Tel Aviv. And I was invited. I have no idea. I've been thinking about it all day today. I don't remember who invited me and why, to speak on the radio, right? On the radio before Purim. It was a Friday. There's a special program. And I and someone else, to this day, I don't remember who it was, some scholar, were invited. And I was there like the feminist. I have no idea. To this day, I don't remember anything about it. But it was a big deal for me. And I was very nervous. I was in Hebrew, you know, and me with my American accent. Anyway, I wrote this on the bus. And later on, someone actually translated it into Hebrew, and it appeared in various places. So when I wrote this thing for this issue, you know, with the Eishet Chayil and everything, I stuck it at the end. And I thought it would be very interesting. So, so I thought that I would share with you this, which you'll understand right away when this was written. This was written last year by Tamara Cohen. As I mentioned earlier, she wrote the piece about Esther. Right? She wrote the piece about Esther. And at the end, and then this appeared online. I was Googling her and to bring more up to date about her. And I saw this, and of course I appended this immediately to what she wrote then. So, Norman, would you like to read this? Are you here? I asked you to read before, but
sure.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't hear my name. Okay. And can you make it a tiny bit bigger?
Yeah. Does that help?
Okay. And on the 13th day of Adar, the word as it was overturned, and the enemies became anemones, red and purple, sprouting freely from the fertile soil. And the trees for hanging became trees for climbing. And all the foolish kings turned their scepters into pogo sticks. And the masks became mirrors, each soul freeing itself, and in so doing, helping another free herself. And joy and gladness for some became joy and gladness for all. And Vashti waltzed with Esther, and they shed tears together for the women and the queers and the children whose beauty had been claimed, commodified, used for a purpose other than to bring delight and wonder to themselves and their Creator. Behold, they took back their bodies. And Mordecai's breasts filled with milk once again, and all the undernourished children of the earth were suckled and satisfied. And in the center of Shushan, the people turned to their neighbors and vowed to never again command a person or group to bow to a power not in line with their own knowing. And the children of Shushan, the Jews and the Persians, each knew themselves to be free as wild horses, and all around them the chant rang out, "This is how it will be done for the one that God desires to honor." And throughout the lands, letters were sent affirming that every child, and indeed every sentient being, was one that God desires to honor. And the people unfurled the scrolls and shed tears, for the grief they carried was very great. and their friends brought packages of food to offer them comfort as they honored their dead. And they wrote additional scrolls to preserve the memory of the way their world had been. And the day of lots grew pregnant with healing as the great Kaf joined the Pei, Resh, Yud, Mem, and the Grogger gave way to the shofar, and the drowning out of names ceased, and the Tikkiot at first were the cries of Sarah and the cries of Hagar, and then the fast gave way to the feast. And then the only palace was God's palace. And in the courtyard, the people gathered to remind one another in the name of Mordecai and Esther, you are here for a purpose. Your fear is not stronger than your courage. You can indeed stand up for your people and insist that there is enough light, happiness, joy, dignity, and honor for all. And there was.
Isn't this an amazing piece?
Oh,
Beautiful.
What do you think? What do you think of that?
amazing.
It's really,
That was
There's-
really good.
it's just an amazing piece. She's an extremely sensitive person. Her sister, by the way, is the dean of the rabbinical school, and she and her sister are close friends. They're close friends of our family. Their mother, Ellen, is also Elaine is a wonderful educator. Elaine Cohen, and her father, her late father, was very actively involved on a very high level with for all sorts of peace efforts. You know, so I mean, all of this is in the background of who she is. I mean, just to be transparent about who she is. What is she suggesting here? That's what is her message here?
First of all, I think it's amazing how she pulls everything together. And that's like brilliant. I mean, when she takes the Tikkiot and the Grogger and pulls it together, beautiful.
Yeah.
I think in a way she's bringing in all the biblical women in the past and giving them some voice and some power.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm also looking for. I'm trying to see where I'm looking for this picture. I wanted to just show it to you. I don't know where it is. Maybe I deleted it. Let's see. Just yeah.
It's also hope.
Hope for yeah. Okay, it ends with hope. Yeah, hope for what?
Yeah. Well, that's not well, hope for the world, I think.
Okay.
Well, and
I
also
mean, she
for
doesn't- she
peace,
doesn't-
she talks about the enemies
She-
becoming anemones, which also
Right.
grounds it in modern Israel.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's what's that symbolic of? That the
Also blood.
anemone, the kalaniot they're all over Israel. They're in honor of the fallen in the rave on October 7th. I mean, that's
Well,
maybe you forgot, but that's
The
you know
new anemone,
That's
the red
the
ones,
new
right?
ones, but they've always been.
I know, but
Yeah.
this year they became symbolic. In our town, in Omer, we have in one of the roundabouts. There's just a whole bunch of anemones, you know, and you know, just like you see yellow all over in Israel. So you also have it there. Where is that picture? I can't find it. I really wanted you to see that picture.
The thing is, everybody needs to read this. You know, it isn't just enough for us to know or for her to have
Right.
written it. It
That's
has to
true.
be absorbed.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. Right. Maybe I have it here. 1 minute.
Marcia, that's unfortunately the way I always feel about all of these situations. It's the preaching to the choir kind of thing that goes.
Okay,
I mean,
that's
this should be printed out.
You want to share it. You want to push it out there somehow.
Okay, I found the picture I was looking for. Okay, 1 second. You'll see why it was very important for me to share that with you. Okay, so and also to show it to you after the poem. I'm going to have to stick it in here now. So this is Vashti's execution in an Amsterdam 1701 Megillah. All right, and it's in the Megillah. It appears in two. You know, after his wrath is assuaged. Is that how you pronounce the word? He remembers Vashti, but he doesn't care about her anymore. And that's when they look out for some more. So what do you see here? What is the scene here?
What are the women?
She's
Like
being
women.
strangled with scarves.
Right.
And it's
Two-
by women.
Right.
They're
Two
women.
strangling her.
The women.
Two women are strangling her by scarves.
Right.
Imagine, this is the imagination of some, we don't know if they were Jewish artists or not, but this is in the Amsterdam Megillah. Right? So certainly they picture her as dying. Right? Notice on the floor, right? What's on the floor? A crown.
Crown.
Brown.
All right. So why they have women doing it, why they have her being strangled to death, why, look at her hands. Her hands are out there like, what am I mean, it's a very gory
What have I
picture,
done?
but it's a horrible picture.
Yeah.
But what was in the imaginations, and that's really, what's really very interesting. Let me save this picture. I don't want to forget to. I just won't delete it. I'll remember that it's here. Stop share. What I really
Make it
want.
bigger. Can you make it bigger?
What?
Could you
Make
enlarge?
it bigger? Okay. 1 second. I'll share it again. I don't think I can make it bigger than that. You mean to see her face?
Okay.
It looks like she's praying to God or something, right?
It's okay.
Right? Oh, it's definitely women.
Was she-
They're all wearing dresses, and she's wearing a fancy dress. No, it's quite clear. It looks like she has a mustache on her face, but I don't think that's, I don't think that is, But looks like she's being tortured for sure. It's not a happy looking picture. This is from the Baginsk collection, whatever that is. How are we doing with time? We don't really have time to. If anyone would like to stay on, I'll show you what I want. Normally, I would have had 2 weeks and I would have done Esther in another week, but we're not going to meet next week. But what I just wanted to point out is that when I looked earlier today at some of the Midrashim, let me just close this. Let me save it. Close it. When I looked earlier today at some of the Midrashim having to do with Esther, they're almost pornographic. Those, I'm serious. The rabbis are really concerned. I'll just give you 1 or 2 examples of them. I mean, I'm just to show you that I'm not making up anything. I don't want you to think that I'm making anything up. I never do. The other day, somebody in one of my classes said, "Where is that from?" And it was at the top of my head that I said it, but that it was based on, I don't remember. Oh, it was about abortion. Was this group or another group? Maybe it was my Monday group. Okay, wait, what am I looking for? Just remind me. Oh, I'm looking to show you in modern Midrash. I'm looking for Esther. Esther. Here we go. I'll just show you 1 or 2 of them just to give you here. Let me just and then we'll stop afterwards, and we can talk privately without being recorded afterwards. For those of you who have time to stay on. So here, I have a whole bunch of things here. This is all Esther, and here, so they have all sorts of words, things about her, about Esther in the Talmud. Okay, but I want to look at 1 or 2. Just it's almost like pornographic, all right? it says here that in the evening she went, and in the morning she returned. This is about Esther, right? From the implicit criticism of that wicked man, Ahasuerus cohabited with many women. We have incidentally learned his phrase at will, that he would not engage in sexual relations during the day, but in a more modest fashion at night. This is, I assume, is about all of the women, not just Esther, all right? And then, why did he love her more than all the other women, right? Okay, he wanted to taste in her the taste of a virgin during intercourse. He tasted it, and if he wanted to experience the taste of a non-virgin, he tasted it, and therefore he loved her more than all the other women. Okay? Or,
But weren't they all supposed to be virgins?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. He gathered up all the virgins. Yeah. Okay, so Esther adhered to the words of Mordecai, right? This teaches that she would show discharges of her menstrual blood to the sages to inquire whether she was pure or impure. The verse continues, as she did when she was brought up with him. In other words, she would show Mordecai all the time, what the situation was, all right? Rabbi Bar Lima said in the name of Rav, and look what this is implying. This means that she maintained a relationship with Mordecai as she would arise from the lap of Ahasuerus, immerse herself in a ritual bath, and sit in the lap of Mordecai. What are they suggesting here?
Oh. Not good.
Not good.
I've
Right?
actually
They
seen
had
that before,
problems.
where they refer to that.
They had serious problems.
Right. Okay. So, and this is Esther they're talking about. All right. We're not talking. Okay. So, and so in the Sanhedrin, right? In the Sanhedrin, you have here the Gemara raises a difficulty. But wasn't the incident involving Esther, her cohabitation with Ahasuerus, a public sin? Why then did Esther not surrender her life rather than engage in intercourse? The Gemara answers, Esther was merely like natural ground, karka olam. She was a passive participant. In other words, if she had been active, that would have been terrible, but because she was passive, it was natural ground, all right? So the obligation to surrender one's life rather than engage in forbidden sexual intercourse only applies to a man who transgresses the prohibition in an active manner. A woman who is passive and merely submits is not required to give up her life so that she not sin, all right? Rava says that there's another justification for Esther's behavior. When Gentiles order the transgression of a prohibition, not in order to persecute the Jews or to make them abandon their religion, but for their own personal pleasure, it's different. In such a situation, there's no obligation to sacrifice one's life, even when the sin is committed in public. In other words, if somebody wants to rape someone or for the purpose of persecuting Jews, then you have to kill yourself or make you abandon your religion, like in the Hanukkah stories, with Hannah and the 7 sons, or sometimes she's called Miriam. Also, there are different names for her. All right, but if it's just for personal pleasure, you don't have to kill yourself. In other words, okay. Anyway, so this is what I call rabbinic pornography, right? From whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna now. Does anyone have any comments about this, or if not, I'll just stop sharing and we can continue to talk. And if anyone would you like to see the Yehudim Ba'im, which for a change does have subtitles, I'll be happy to show it to you. It doesn't always have
Normally,
subtitles.
I want to see it, but before that, I just wanted to say that what you just read kind of explains the picture that you showed from the Amsterdam Megillah, of that the other women might have been jealous of her.
Ooh, yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
The question is, are these Jewish women? Also, you need to have 2 two witnesses. If you think of the story with Achav, with Jezebel and Achav, who have to have two witnesses to have a lie, right? So the idea of having two is very interesting also. But it's clear in the Tanakh. It's clear, it's clear. It's not clear that what happened to her. It doesn't say she was killed. It doesn't say that. So her land was given away. Her place was given away, but it's not clear.
So can you end happily? Yes. Do you have a happy ending?
Happy ending? Well, first of all, yeah, have an enjoyable holiday. Dress up as Vashti, right? And keep on saying no when you feel that something is wrong. And be like Esther, but not at the end. Not at the end when they start, killing everyone. So that I have a problem with, okay. So let me just first of all stop sharing. Stop recording. Okay. Yes.